everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to cover more about Jeskola Buzz. I talked about Buzz in a recent video about what it does, if it's still relevant to use today in 2021, how it stacks up to other audio programs that are more popular or more expensive. I will link this previous video in the description. If you want to know more, go and check that out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here rehashing things that I covered in the first video. I'm just going to move along and teach some more stuff about my workflow with Buzz. There's one glaringly obvious way that Buzz does not compare to the other leading audio software, the other leading DAWs. This is the fact that Buzz does not natively work with recording and editing audio clips. There are definitely ways to work around this limitation. There are ways that you can record audio inside of Buzz. There are ways that you can edit audio clips inside of Buzz. There's some tricks with the sample players that will play back your audio clips that will make it so you don't need to do as much editing. All of these more advanced techniques, working with audio clips inside of Buzz, I'm going to cover in a future video. But today I'm just going to show you the quick and easy way to work around this. It's actually the way that I use the most often to extend the functionality of Buzz and to write more guitar-based music. And it's really simple. We don't have to overthink it here. All we want is a free solution to be able to work with audio clips. That way we can play the audio clips in Buzz. So what do? We use a different program. I use Audacity, and I know that there was a collective loud groan and a gigantic eye roll from the entire audience as soon as I said that. But as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with using Audacity for its very most basic function of recording sound from your audio input and exporting that sound as a WAV file. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using Audacity just for this very most basic, simple functionality. And compared to using Buzz's features for recording and editing audio, I would way rather use Audacity's interface any day of the week anyway. The only reason that you would really have to use the features inside of Buzz are just to prove a point that Buzz can do it all without having outside help, which is exactly what I'm going to do in a future video, but I'm going to show you the practical way to do it today. So we download Audacity, we download Buzz. All the links for these downloads are going to be in the description of this video, so we're all set and we're all ready to go here. I have my Focusrite Scarlett plugged into my computer. It's a pretty decent, cheap audio interface. It's a good one for beginners to get started with. Again, not sponsored at all. I'm just showing you what I like to use. And plugged into the Focusrite, we just have this lovely large diaphragm condenser microphone right here. And we got my trusty acoustic guitar right here. Hopefully we can make this microphone pick up the guitar and my voice at the same time. Good enough to do just a really simple, basic example recording here. Okay, so here we are. We're inside of Audacity. You can see up here that I have the input device. You can tell it's the input because of the little microphone symbol right here. The input device is set to my Focusrite USB audio. So before you record, you're just going to want to make sure that this is set to the right thing so you're getting the sound from your microphone. Next, we're just going to hit this record button right up here, and we're just going to record a simple guitar track. I'm going to do a little count-in at the start of the guitar track so we have a little reference point for later. This will help us lining up the guitar and the vocals later on inside of Buzz. Maybe you can just do it by ear. I like to do it this way with a count-in. Stop the recording. That should be good. Good, if not a little bit quiet. So we'll just go up here to Effect, Amplify. It will give you as much volume by default as you need to make the track as loud as it possibly can be. Basically, this number right here will always be set to a point where the new peak amplitude will be 0, which is what we want. It's as loud as it can be without clipping now. It'll be perfect to export and take into the Buzz environment. Okay, now we'll just record a quick vocal take to go with this, and this is bound to be dumb and embarrassing. Here we go. Okay, you can tell I did my absolute best there. We'll just amplify this as well. I doubt there's going to be a good mix here. Let's just see what they sound like together real quick. Anyway, they're too loud. You can tell that they're clipping up here. When this red mark appears, you can tell that... So, like, neither of the tracks on its own is clipping, but the two of them, when you put them together and the audio is summed together into one thing, then it's too loud and it's making this meter up here clip. But we're not going to worry about any of that because we're not doing any mixing here inside of Audacity because Audacity kind of sucks for mixing. So what we're going to do is we're going to export these tracks and now we're going to put them into Buzz where we can work on them and make them sound nicer. And we want to leave these pretty much so the exact same length. So what we can do to clean up the start of this a little bit, let's zoom in a little. We'll go like right here to the start of that count-in. Select it really close. Select it so you get both the tracks in there. And then we'll just delete that. And then both the tracks are still the same length. Both the tracks still start at the same point. It's still in time, but we just cut out all of the garbage at the start of the track. We'll do the same over here at the end. You can use the delete key on the keyboard for this too. Highlight the guitar track and we'll go over here to File, Export, Selected Audio. This one is a very important step for importing audio into Buzz. This is another one of Buzz's slight limitations. Natively, Buzz only works with 16-bit wave samples. That means that anything of a higher bit depth like this, you'll notice the encoding is set to 32-bit PCM. That's too high for Buzz. All that will happen when you import this is it will give you a bunch of really crappy staticky noise that you don't want. So we're going to change this to 16-bit PCM. That's the only technical detail you have to know. 16-bit wave samples are the only ones that work with Buzz. So we'll just put this somewhere we're going to remember. I know I should have done this before. So tutorial audio. Cool. Call it guitar. Same thing over here. Select it all. Double click. Export selected audio. Make sure it's 16-bit PCM and the format is wave. Then we'll just save that as vocal. Alright, so here we are. We're inside of Buzz. Now we want to get those audio clips that we recorded in Audacity and we want to import those. And where we go to do that is over here on the wave table. You can tell because it's the icon that is a wave on top of a table. So here we go. It gives us a file browser. So I saved this on the desktop. Don't worry about all my weird junk I have here. Hopefully none of it's too weird. Tutorial, audio, guitar, and vocal. We'll just highlight those. Click this button and it puts it over here on our list. It gives each one of these a number in the list. So if we want to play these sounds later, then we just reference it using this number. And I'm going to show you how right now. So I'm going to go back here to the machine view. We want to search. We're going to get a generator, and the generator is called the Matilde Tracker. There we go. We'll do the Matilde Tracker 2. That's the one that I use the most frequently. I'm not sure why I didn't end up using the number 3, the newest version, but I have the number 2 going in all my projects, so we're just going to keep it like that. Let's do another instance of that. So we have 2 of them. If we want, we can name these too. So we can right click, rename, call it guitar, right click, rename, and call it vocal. Then real quick, we go up here to the pattern view. Right here at the start of this column, you can tell because it's usually the one that has 3 dots. You see how all these fields have 2 dots? There's the one that has 3 dots. And that's going to be the one that lets you enter in notes. That's going to be the one that lets you trigger samples. All we have to do right here is press the letter Z on the keyboard. and it plays our guitar track. Pretty cool, right? Except you'll notice I'm inside the machine for the vocals right now. So we'll go over here to where it says wave, and you'll see that it lets you pick out the guitar or the vocal track, the sample number 1 or sample number 2, like we saw earlier over here in the wavetable, number 1 and number 2, right? So we'll jump back over here on the vocal machine, get the sample for the vocals, and then we'll trigger that sample here. And all this C4 over here means is that it's triggering a sample right here. It actually uses a real note value here. See, if you press different keys, you can make it say C sharp or D or whatever. But we want to keep it right at C4. What that means is that it's playing back our sample at the original pitch that it was recorded at. If you use any different note right here besides C4, a higher note will pitch the sample higher up and it will make it faster, and a lower note will pitch the sample down and make it lower. So let's just jump over here to our other instance of the Mathilde tracker. Again, if you're getting lost here, this is where it shows you what machine we're on. So we just have to switch over here. We only have 3 machines, so it's either the master channel, the vocal, or the guitar. Let's jump over here to the guitar. Let's go over here and make sure that we have the right sound clip selected. Right up here to the one with 3 dots, and then hit the Z on your keyboard to give it the note. I'll show you a little more too, like if we change this bass octave, let's change that down to 2. Let's see what happens if you also press the Z key. You'll notice that now that 4 is a 2, and it's playing back the sound at a much lower octave. Pretty neat, right? Anyway, we can just click here too, and we can just change this to a 4, just manually like that. Anyway, now that we have both of the samplers playing the sample that we need, let's go over here to the sequence view, and let's make sure that they're both going to be played in the sequence. So we just want to make sure that we have the pattern in each of the tracks here, and we want to make the whole thing longer so it plays the entire sound instead of just looping this first bar of it, right? So we got to click somewhere like down here, and we got to just hit Control and E. That sets the end point for your loop. Control B would set the start point, right? So we could go Control B, Control E, and then just make it repeatedly loop this section right here, right? And it'd go down to the bottom, and it would keep, see, it loops over and it restarts again like that, right? But that's not what we want for our case here. So let's stop it. Right up here at the top, we'll go Control B. Right down here at the end, Control E. That's B for beginning, E for end. Okay. So now let's play these samples and let's see if they line up somewhat the right timing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much so how I recorded it in the first place. I think the timing works about right. So let's just say hypothetically, if the vocal track didn't line up with the guitar track properly, what I would do is I would go in here to the vocal and just bump this down. I'm hitting the insert key, insert, add space, delete, take space away. Be careful, otherwise you could take too much space away and just delete your note completely, right? So you would just put that on a different line. You would put that on a different line than the first beat if you want it to start later. By the way, to stop it, I'm just pushing the 1, number 1 on my keyboard. That puts the off command. And if there's a sample playing and you type off over here, it will stop the sample. Let's say the other way around. If the sample wasn't starting early enough, then what I would do is I would take this one and I would start it over here. And I would take this one, and I would move that note on command. I'll just move it all the way down to the end. See how that goes. So it's starting on the last tick of this pattern, right? And this pattern starts directly after it. So you'll see now the vocal is being triggered 1 tick before the guitar count in starts. We'll see if you can hear that. Boom. See how it's kind of too early and it's kind of out of time there. I was kind of hoping to have a sloppier take so I could demonstrate this lining up the clips better, but we actually did a pretty good job just in the recording session and everything. So hopefully you get the general idea. We're going to move on to exporting this song. But first we want to make it sound a little bit nicer. So let's start off by cleaning this up. We'll just add that pattern right there at the start of the sequence again. Go back over here to our vocal and just remove all that extra space. Again, that's insert and delete, or you just type it back in with the C4, which is the number Z on your keyboard. Let's go back over here into the machine view. I want to put a little bit of reverb on this, so let's just search verb, sonic verb, that's the one I want. We also want to see how loud each one of these tracks are, so we don't get any sort of clipping or any too loud peaks in our final product. So what we need is a meter. The one I like to use is called the Jeskola meter. So let's just type that here in our search bar. Jed, oh there it is. Cyan phase Jeskola. So a cool way to add this to the machine view and hook it up all in one step. You just click it and drag it right over the top of this arrow and let go. And then it's automatically connected. Let's disconnect this one. So to disconnect, we right click the arrow. There's a little scissors icon to disconnect. Then we shift, click, drag to reconnect those. Let's take the S verb, drag it over here. You'll see that when I drag, the finger becomes a little arrow icon. And that means if you drop it right there, it will also connect the new machine. So the sonic verb comes in a little bit hot and heavy with the reverb settings by default. Let's just pop this open really quick. You'll see reverb level. Let's take that way down, something like negative 16-ish or so. Dry level, leave it. Decay a little bit more, 40-ish. Damping less, color more, room size a lot less. Let's just make that like 20-ish. High pass, let's crank that up into the lower mids-ish, say 800, 900 or so. And that should be about good for the reverb settings. Double click here on the Jeskola. It's a very simple sort of interface. When we play the track, it will tell us how loud each one of these is. Okay, so you can tell right away we're already getting some clipping on these tracks. This negative 6 decibel mark right here, just for the sake of mastering my song, I don't really like to let anything go up and over this negative 6 decibel mark that much. You have a little bit of headroom there, so when you export the song, you don't have any clipping, and it just makes it a lot nicer to work with on the back end. So let's take this guitar. We will right click, and you can use the scroll wheel here. If you use the scroll wheel, it just goes down by even decibel amounts, which is a pretty easy way to go about the mixing here. So we'll just take this down about, that was clipping quite a bit, so let's take it down by 6. Let's take each side down by 6. Let's see how it sounds again. Oops, okay, we gotta go back in here to the sequence view, and you gotta go back to the start. Just click over here on the left-hand side, right up here at the top, and that will take it to the start. Alright, we can stop it there. We also can tell how long our loop needs to be, too. So we can go right here. The line over here says 128, and we can just click Control E. Oops. Control E, and that sets the end point. So now we're pretty much so ready to export this song and take it to the mastering phase. So what we do now is we're up here in the view menu, hard disk recorder. We want to make sure we set the bit depth up to integer 32. This will give us a lot higher audio quality than the 16-bit will. It will kind of make up for the fact that we had to record and then export it to 16-bit in order to be played into Buzz recording it on the back end with a higher audio sample quality, it won't really save the degradation that happened in our original exporting step, but it will at least prevent further degradation and further audio artifacts. All that techie stuff out of the way, now let's give it a file name. Save as. And just go over here to the desktop, tutorial audio, and we'll just call it mixdown. Mixdown.wave. Okay, all we gotta do is just record loop. If we just hit record, then that will start recording, and then we would have to press the play button, and then when we're done recording it, we'd have to press stop. And if we just hit the record loop button instead, it will just record everything that's in our sequence, and it will start itself, it will stop itself. There won't be any dead space at the start or the end of the recording. Okay, so here we go, record loop. And then it stops, so we can just close all of this out. We'll have our file on the other end. So now we're back here in Audacity. We can pop open our folder with our tutorial audio and just drag and drop this mix down right into Audacity. And now you'll see that we have both of our tracks playing together. Now all I would do is just highlight everything. Let's make sure that's as loud as it can possibly be. Just amplify, and it takes care of the how much volume for you. And you'll see how there are just a few little peaks that are making it so the rest of this track can't be louder because this one little part here wants to be too loud and peak, right? And we don't want that for our final release. We want to squash these peaks down just a little bit so we can squeeze every bit of volume out of it that we can. We don't want to overdo this, otherwise it will introduce distortion and other bad stuff that we don't like. And I'm going to do this using the hard limiter. If you want a more in-depth look at this process, I've made another video about it, and I will hopefully remember to link it in the description. Anyway, here we go, hard limiter, effect, limiter. This is the important control, the threshold right here, so we'll just say 1.5 decibels. We don't need to do a whole lot. Apply makeup gain, so after we squash down those peaks, it will just turn the volume up as loud as it can be again for us. And it's just a small step, but if you're going to export your song and you're going to have people listen to it back on their phone speakers or on a crappy laptop speaker, I mean, you're going to want every extra little bit of volume that you possibly can get. And I know you're probably thinking, what was the point of this whole thing if you're just going to record it in Audacity, take it out of Audacity, just put some reverb on it, and then put it back into Audacity? Like, what's really the point there, right? So what I would usually do if I'm using Buzz to produce a song this way is there would be a lot more mixing steps and a lot more effects and processing that I use inside of Buzz. It's a way to work on the audio clips inside of Buzz and apply different sorts of effects. I would probably use a lot of different compression and bus stages in the process of mixing even just a simple acoustic song with a few tracks. And trust me, doing this all inside of Audacity is a great big pain. Doing it all inside of Buzz is a very fun time with a lot of different possibilities to express your creative weirdness and make your audio tracks as awesome as they possibly can be. Alright, and that is all for this one, folks. Stay tuned for more content about Jeskola Buzz. Stay tuned for more educational music stuff in general. And listen to my mixtape, bruh. Links for stuff in the description. Thank you for watching again, and I hope you all have fun out there.